What are the best power moves you've ever seen someone do in real life? One of my friend's daughters has hearing aids similar to the ones old people use, but with an extra piece on them. Not the ones that are attached to your head. If someone is bothering her and she doesn't want to deal with them, she pulls her hearing aids out and keeps doing whatever she was doing. This girl is 8. A friend and I were driving home after a night out and we get pulled over by the police for speeding. The cop approaches our vehicle and my friend the driver says to the cop, "I didn't even see you. Where were you parked?" The cop responds by saying he was parked at the bottom of an apartment building driveway that has a blind spot. My friend says to the cop, "Well, I own that building. It's private property and I've asked you guys numerous times not to park there as I don't want my building having a reputation of being a speed trap." A couple of minutes later, after the cop verifies the information, he comes to the car, apologizes, and sends us on our way. My first boyfriend and I were out at a restaurant in the middle of the week. It was nearly empty, but for some reason the hostess sat us across from the only other couple. We were 18 and the couple was about 30. The guy was talking at length about his boring ass job and the lady was obviously not into it. He was talking so loud that me and my boyfriend couldn't even have our own conversation. The guy finally shut up and there was an extended silence. After a bit, my BF looked up at me and said, "So, do you put out?" I busted out laughing, and the woman at the other table hastily covered her grin. The dude scoffs and says, "Good one, buddy," and threw his napkin down, like he lost an argument or something. I'm not a man, so I don't know what kind of power play that was, but I will never forget it. My 3-year-old nephew came up to me and said, "Uncle, do you want to hear a joke?" I responded in my best world-weary voice with, "Kiddo, my whole life is a joke." And without missing a beat, the little shoot replies, "Okay, but this is a funny one. Love that kid. Edit, my first gold. Thank you." I have a good personal one. Worked at a major office retail store for a while in the tech section. Everyone was paid just above minimum wage, except for the department leads, who made $10 an hour. Well, our tech lead moved, and they didn't replace him right away. So I busted ass, and made sure to fill appropriately. Also coming up was Black Friday, and nobody was allowed to take off. Company policy, no ifs ands or buts, all hands on deck. Well, I asked off anyway, hoping maybe they would let me. My girlfriend's uncle was always gone on deployment and this was one of the few years he would be home for Thanksgiving, and I really wanted to finally meet him. They told me no, go back to tech position. I fulfilled that duty for about a month, as if I was the tech lead, then approached the store manager asking if I can have the position as well as the raise that accompanies it. He sat me down and explained how they weren't sure yet and I could work really hard for the next 6 months, then they would reevaluate and see if I was fit for the position. The other department managers all figured I'd be given the job and were all surprised when it had sent happened. I smiled and said thank you for your time, walked straight to the work computer we used and typed this exact sentence: store manager's name. This is an official 9-day notice as my last day working here will be the day before Thanksgiving. I walk right back into his office after printing it out and hand it to him. He reads it, looks up at me, and asks if I can stay for Black Friday. I told him you couldn't pay me enough. This kid from my class in high school was too late for physics class. When he entered the class, the teacher said, "When you are too late, you know you are not supposed to enter that door, Jacob." So, this happened on a summer day, and the fire exit door was open. After 10 minutes we hear this walking sound on the metal steps of the emergency stairs outside. We had class in room 403, the 4th floor. After a while we all see Jacob entering the room from the fire exit like nothing happened and sit down. Dropped my son at preschool early with breakfast. Only other kids, there was a girl eating her breakfast at one end of the table. She bats her eyes and says, "You can sit by me." He says, "I like this seat over here, at the other end of the table." And she got up and moved. Had a friend walk up to a girl at a party and say, "You are the hottest girl here, and I'm the best looking guy. We belong together." He took her home, and they are married now. She was the hottest girl there. It's debatable on him. Was at a Mexican restaurant on Cinco de Mayo. Place was absolutely packed, yet somehow there were only like 2, maybe 3 waiters on staff. We'd been there like 40 minutes and had drinks, but still hadn't gotten to order food. This dude at the next table stands up, starts taking people's orders, and delivering them to the kitchen. The other waiters seemed like they really appreciated it, because people were starting to get pissed until that point. He didn't take my table's order, but he took one nearby, and he sounded pretty fun. A friend ran into him a few months ago, and said he's really cool. My boyfriend's 5-year-old niece was sitting on my lap. Her 7-year-old brother wanted to sit on my lap, so she farted on me, and was like, guess you'll have to sit in my fart cloud now. At a bar, not particularly busy, bartender was talking to some girl across bar, ignoring everybody else who was trying to get drinks. 10 minutes go by, still chatting. Guy reaches across bar and fills himself up from tap. I was at a 24-hour grocery store once around 10 or 11 PM. I'm second in line waiting at the only open register in the store, and there were no employees. To be SE, not even the stock team. We ring the bell for service, yell out hello, even walk around looking for an employee. Nothing. Finally, after 10-ish minutes, the guy in front of me says frick this, and just walks out with a full cart of groceries. Got away with the whole thing. An employee showed up a minute later and no one in line said a word. I asked my friend's 3-year-old son who his new girlfriend was. He said it was my girlfriend. I was at a party in college. One of my friends was chatting up some girl he was into. Another one of our friends went up and pants him. Pants and boxers. My dude didn't freak out or break conversation flow. He just stood there daffy ducking with zero friction, and that man got laid that night. There was a post yesterday where somebody was at a party with Jeff Goldblum. When the host introduced JG to them, JG said, my god, oh, yes, of course. Like he had heard of the person. They were on cloud 9 until they heard JG say that to everyone he was introduced to. My father told me this story. He had a friend that took philosophy class and they were discussing authority. The teacher made an example. If I say, the class is over, you can leave, you will do it. But if Mark says the same thing, you will stay here. After that, Mark stood up and said the class was over, they could leave, and every student left the room. My father didn't have a lecture at that time, and when he asked his friend why he wasn't in his philosophy class, he told him this story. I was meeting up with my friends at the bar. They had all been there for a while and comprised about 90% of the bar's business. When I walked in, the hostess decided I was going to be the first one charged a cover fee for entry. I told her I wasn't there for their event and just wanted to sit with my friends already at the bar. She told me tough luck basically, and that I would have to pay. I yelled over to my friends she wouldn't let me in without paying, and they all just stood up and left so we could go to our favorite bar instead. Was only like a $5 or $10 cover, and instead of getting it, they lost the majority of their current business, about 7 people total, all of whom drink more than they should. My friends made me look like a boss, but it wouldn't have been a power move without them. I'm lucky to have a great group that has each other's back. This is from back in HS in the 90s. I had a friend that was really small who would get picked on often but never did anything about it. Neither did the rest of us when we got picked on. Nothing ever got physical, so who cares? Why start a fight? Use your words, not your fists, etc. One day, we were talking, and a big dude that was in his grade grabbed him in a chokehold out of nowhere. No reason at all. My buddy kicked one leg forward and all of a sudden, the big dude was on his back and pinned. My buddy hit him by the throat. He said, will you stop it now? The big guy did. Never bugged him again. It so happens that the little guy's dad taught Shotokan, and he was absurdly good. I've never seen someone move so fast. Took down a guy that was 75 pounds heavier than him easy. Apparently he helped his dad train students. Head never brought it up before as it wasn't important to him. Girls and cars were more interesting at the time to us. Years ago, a buddy and stopped in one of the national chain restaurants open 24 hours. Usually the service was pretty decent. Not sure what happened that time. Was a number of people in a kind of addition room off the main area. Got our food and first round of drinks. Buddy wanted a coffee refill, they didn't leave us the carafe like some do now. No waitress, nobody checked in the room for a while. Heard other people commenting they wanted more coffee as well. I got up, walked to some little station off the kitchen, maybe been a while. Grabbed a pot of coffee and walked back to the room. Poured my buddy's coffee and then poured everybody else who wanted it. Got some laughing thank yous. Probably in class, we know how, when you ask if you can use the bathroom, teachers are like, can you? Well, one classmate, when he asked and our teacher said that, was like, yes I can, and just left. I once had a substitute teacher who vehemently refused to allow me to use the restroom 20 feet down the hallway, and I really had to poo. After 15 minutes of turtlenecking, I straight up raised my hand and very loudly exclaimed, if you don't let me go to the bathroom, I promise you I am going to shit on the fucking floor. The sub let me go to the bathroom, and the embarrassment of having to say that in front of my classmates was most definitely worth it. My old company required a doctor's note if you missed 3 days sick. We also had a PTO system, meaning that our sick time and vacation were the same. On the third day I called my boss and told them I wasn't feeling better. They asked me to email them a doctor's note. I told them I didn't go the doctors, it was a flu, you just have to wait it out. Basically the VP that required I get a note or come in. So I came in my PJs, clocked in, filled out the PTO request for the rest of the week, puked in my waste basic, which started as sympathy pukes, and was sent home for the day. Because guess what, I was sick. It might not be the biggest of all the power moves, but I always appreciate it when somebody shows up late drinking an iced coffee. If it was a regular coffee, you could assume that they got the cup a while ago and are still carrying it. When you hear those ice cubes rattling around in the cup though, you know for sure that they got that drink pretty recently, even though they were running late. It's a real say something move. Had a friend who worked as a fellow HVAC tech in Dallas. He had problems with this restaurant towing him while he was parked at his GF's place. She lived upstairs and she had 2 parking spaces with her condo. He got towed one too many times, so he had a source for the odor, and they use natural gas, and he put a few drops near the outdoor seating area and waited. Sure enough, the fire dep came and shut the restaurant down for a weekend while they investigated. Then he started parking at a pair lot 2 blocks away, and he started towing the restaurant patrons' cars when they parked in his GF's assigned parking. Cops got involved, and the cops took his side. He was later able to get a group of condo owners together and go after that restaurant for having them towed from the spots that they actually owned. They were able to get their liquor license suspended for 180 days. It put them out of business. Was in college doing my work-study job as a campus security patrol guy. We just walked around the dorms to check to make sure all the doors were locked and everything was quiet on the midnight to 6 AM shift. Had radios to call the cops, but no weapons, badges, or authority. We had to keep a paper log on 3-part forms of everything we found and report our location whenever we were randomly called on the radio from base. One morning after my shift, I got called into the office of the fat piece of shit Southern Sheriff Warnabe who ran the campus security department. He told me I was fired for failing to turn in the log for my partner and I from the night before. He found out that I was friends with one of the other guys and he didn't like people working shifts with our friends. I had turned in my log, but of course it was nowhere to be seen when he showed me a pile of the other team's logs. But what old WW didn't know was that I was active in student government and had gotten acquainted with the dean of student housing. One day in his office had seen piles of the pink copies of the campus security logs and had told me that they come over first thing every morning. I trotted over there as soon as I left the chief's office, and sure enough, there was the pink copy of my log from the night before. The dean called up the chief and told him that there must be some mistake about my log because he was looking at the copy that had come from the chief's office no more than an hour earlier. My firing was rescinded, and I never could get that old asshole chief to say another word to me or look me in the eye ever again. I had that job for as long as I wanted it from that point forward. It wasn't so much a power move as much as it was just a sheer lack of fricks to give. I was taking a test in high school when I noticed someone else in the class shuffling through his backpack. Without saying a word he pulled out a newspaper, kicked back, just read the paper instead of taking his test. It was so simple but effective. In his own way he calmly erased the serious atmosphere our teacher was trying to instill.